Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise in strong support of the amendment that is before us, which is the Republican alternative to the budget adjustment that's been offered by the Connecticut Democrat majority, which they have named an act concerning affordability, which is about as insulting a statement as possibly could be made. It is so hypocritical and untrue, it shocks the senses, in fact. And what's interesting here is that we're about to have an important vote in this chamber, which is going to very clearly define and lay out the differences between two very divergent views of how to manage our state's finances. On one hand, you have the arrogance of the majority that does not seem to recognize that people in our state are suffering. They are suffering under the weight of an unaffordable economy in the state of Connecticut. One of the worst economic situations that we have from a standpoint of being able to simply afford goods and services for the average person. Some of the highest housing costs, third highest electric rates in the country, second highest taxes in the country, and this is just piling on more and more. There is very little respect for the taxpayers, there's very little respect for the minority members of this chamber, and there's less respect, in fact, for the people that we represent when we come up here and speak on their behalf, because you would think that at least there'd be an acknowledgement that even if our views as individual lawmakers aren't respected, the fact that we represent 100,000 people each in this chamber should be. There is contempt for business, there is contempt for success, there is contempt for people who have achieved success and wealth in our society. Alternatively, you have the Republican view, which is respect for the people of Connecticut, that they are our bosses. They are the people that send us here. We are supposed to be here doing what they are asking us to do. And I haven't received an email in the last 5 years, I think, where someone didn't at some point in their message say to me, gee, can you do something about the cost of living in our state? People are struggling. I'm dealing with folks who are calling, potentially going to lose their homes because they can't afford the property taxes that they're going to be faced with after this upcoming revaluation changes the outcome of the way their towns manage their business. The document that we're looking at is absurd. 700 pages. And this is not a budget, folks. This is an adjustment to a budget. We do our budget in the first year of every biennium. And sure, that document's a 700 or 1,000 page document too. But to make an adjustment, a little tweaking around the edges, and it has to be 700 pages also? Some of the policy that is in the 700 pages can only exist because the governor of the state of Connecticut had to declare an emergency to make it so. In my view, the only emergency is the lack of affordability that's going on Main Street. Not an emergency which allows the majority in the state to exceed the spending cap and spend more. The document contains not just changes to the budget and a bonding package, but dozens of other items, bills, in fact, that should be going through the legislative process. We are a few days from the end of the legislative session, and there are still bills making their way through this building, through both chambers, but somehow, some of those items are right here. There are fixes to bills that have not even passed yet. There are sections about labor policy, about guns, about energy policy. There are sections about lobsters. Yes, double poles and lobsters from yesterday. We debated a bill for many, many hours yesterday that was supposed to be about labor policy, but it had sections about double utility poles and lobster fishermen in the state of Connecticut. And here they are again, showing up in an act concerning affordability. No cranes, though. What's going on here is a very, very simple question. If you vote for the underlying bill, What you get is an increase in spending of $750 million in fiscal year 2026. And if you combine it with the next year, you end up with an increase of $2.2 billion, an 8.1% increase in spending. How many people back home are seeing an 8.1% increase in their income? Very few, I would gather, while their expenses continue to rise. That amount is $400 million more than the spending cap. Now, I don't want to go into a big speech about the guardrails and all of the different meanings of things, but I think the average person understands the term spending cap. The spending cap is a very simple rule that says that we're supposed to not exceed the amount that we spent in the previous year by too much. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's the gist of the thing. And this is a proposal that dramatically exceeds that spending cap to the point where we need the governor to declare an emergency to allow us to do it. And what's going on here is that basically you taxpayers of the state of Connecticut have been overtaxed. I don't know if you were overtaxed on purpose or by accident, but either way, you have paid an extra $1.37 billion in taxes. Now, some people might say that that's volatility revenue or use a technical term, but the fact of the matter is that's what's going on. The state of Connecticut has changed our tax structure over and over again. The majority has rigged it, so the receipts, the money coming in, is exceeding our needs. Now, normally you would say, gee, what do you do with that money? I would say you give it back to the people who gave it to us because it's extra. Just like if you gave your neighbor $100 when you only owed them $50, they should turn around and go, oh, by the way, here's the other $50 because you didn't owe me that. Not the state of Connecticut. No, they've come up with this document to find out not only how to spend the extra money, but an additional $750 million. The guardrails, by the way, are not an invention simply of Republicans who demand accountability and transparency and fiscal sanity in the state of Connecticut. This is something that was agreed to initially back in 2017 during a bipartisan budget, and then it was tweaked in 2018. But I want to remind everyone in this circle that back in 2023, we stood here and voted on a standalone bill to reaffirm our commitment to those guardrails, including the spending cap. How long did that last? How long did that last that we were going to respect those fiscal guardrails? Our amendment that Senator Fazio just did a great job of bringing out honors the guardrails. We respect the fact that we need to stay within the lines. We still managed, staying within the guardrails, to offer a majority of the items that are contained in the act concerning affordability that the majority is so proud of. We still manage to provide the same exact education funding that they do. We're not losing anything. The same ECS funding money is in there. The same aid to municipalities is in there at the same levels. But we do find ways to cut spending. And sure, we cut spending on health care for illegal aliens. And what an unbelievably disingenuous conversation I just heard about that subject, to try and make it seem like we don't care about children. The fact of the matter is the majority invited those undocumented people into the state of Connecticut with their policies. And yeah, they should pay for it. But the taxpayers of the state of Connecticut shouldn't have to. And our budget alternative for this adjustment actually reduces taxes dramatically. $750 million in fiscal year 2027, and even more than $1.5 billion in 2028. That's what we should be doing, folks. We should be voting for this amendment that'll put Connecticut back on a proper course with fiscal responsibility and fiscal sanity. There are so many things that are in this underlying bill that I just cannot abide by. The one thing I can tell you that's not in it is affordability. but it is in this amendment. I encourage my colleagues to support this amendment. It's a very easy vote, folks. If you believe in the spending cap, if you believe in accountability, if you believe in returning money that doesn't belong to you because you overtax the people of Connecticut, you vote yes. If you believe in fiscal insanity and irresponsibility that is going to lead to deficits and out-of-control budgets in the future, well, I guess then you vote our amendment down. But the people of Connecticut should know either way on which side you stand. Thank you.